American Novels. Although Edward Eggleston was not a professional novelist when he wrote The Hoosier Schoolmaster, his book has won popular fame and critical recognition as the forerunner of the American dialect novel. The NBC University of the Air presents Part 1 in a two-part treatment of The Hoosier Schoolmaster as another in the summer series of American Novels.
To the people of the state of Indiana versus Schoolmaster Ralph Hartsook on charge of highway robbery stands adjourned until tomorrow at 9 o'clock. All those present will leave the courtroom in an orderly fashion. Mr. Jail will take the prisoner away.
Come on, Hartsook, follow me. You'll be glad to know we ain't touched a thing in your cell. It's just like you left it this morning. Highwayman. There he goes.
Next for three.
Schoolmaster, robber.
I like to get my hands on him.
I say get along.
Let him through, let him through, let the prisoner through. This way, Hartsook, through here. Sit in there. There. Now, Master Hartsook, since you won't have no lawyer, I guess you'll just have to holler for me if you want something. I'll come a-running. Yes, sir. You're the first prisoner I ever had who was a schoolmaster turned highwayman.
Highwayman. Here I sit alone in my cell. I, Ralph Hartsook, accused of being a common thief. First day of my trial has ended. The trial I asked for when I gave myself up to the law, to clear my name or stand forever condemned. Now my chances look very slim indeed, thanks to the calculations of one evil man. Every one of today's witnesses was carefully rehearsed by him, and then put upon the stand to testify against me, to damn me and send me to the state penitentiary for crimes which I did not commit. All this because of one man. It began on a warm autumn afternoon, a few days before the opening of the Flat Creek School. I had been walking about the countryside, acquainting myself with my students-to-be. And at one farm, I fell to talking with a handsome young giant named Bud Means. And as I looked back, I realized that it was perhaps the most important conversation in my life.
You figure on being the new schoolmaster, do you?
That's right.
Well, now, you look kind of meek to me. It takes a right smart man to be a schoolmaster in Flat Creek, Mr. Hartsook.
You wouldn't want to scare a fella now, would you, Bud?
No, sir, I wouldn't. But I think it's only proper for you to know that we're pretty hard set down here, Mr. Hartsook. The last two masters was driv off. Fact is, I helped thrash the last one myself.
I see. And is that thrashing something you're proud of?
No.
Then why do you tell me these things, Bud? What's your reason?
No special reason. I just figure that you should know the honest facts, that's all. No offense intended.
I'm sure of that, Bud. And no offense taken if you were being honest. Honesty is one of the qualities that I prize above all others in a Christian.
Never seen how a poor unlearned Flat Creeker like me could lay claim to being much of a Christian. But, Master Hartsook, if you mean that about honesty, you and me, we ought to get along pretty well together. There's few honest men around here, and if you really are one, I'd like to shake your hand and be your friend.
We shook hands, Bud Means and I. There was something about his firm grip, his honest face, and his ready grin that made me feel that I had indeed found a friend. And I figured he was much more of a Christian than he imagined. As it turned out, Bud Means became the best friend I've ever had. Funny that the second person I met that afternoon in Means' farmyard should turn out to be my worst enemy. He came up on horseback.
Good afternoon. I think my horse is having a little trouble with her right front shoe. Bud, can you take a look at it?
Sure can, Dr. Small. Hush, you lazy hound. Hush. Here, let me have her, Doctor.
Well, this is very kind of you, Bud. There she is.
Don't mind the dog, Doctor. He's just a little worrisome.
Well, you know the saying. Barking dogs don't bite. How's the family, Bud?
Just fine, Doctor. This here's Ralph Hartsook, our new schoolmaster.
Oh. How do you do, Master Hartsook?
How do you do, Doctor?
I've heard about you. You're a stranger in these parts, are you not?
Well, not really. I'm from Lewisburg, about 30 miles from here. But I've been away in the East going to school.
How nice. And now you've returned to your native Indiana. Is that it?
Yes.
Well, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you. Tell me, Dr. Small, do you attend the entire Flat Creek district?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it very interesting. Rural, but very interesting.
I guess you must find it interesting, Doctor. Riding about day and night. Only some dark night you're going to get hit over the head by a night rider or a highwayman. Riding all alone the way you do.
Perhaps, but I doubt it. The ordinary criminal is very stupid. Don't you think so, Master Hartsook?
You have me there, Dr. Small. I've never known any criminals.
I beg your pardon. Are you insinuating that I have?
Oh, no, sir. Believe me, I had no intention.
I'm sure you didn't. But the best of intentions can cost a man his life. In this country, few men live to make the same mistake twice. Remember that, Master Hartsook. Bud, how does that shoe look?
Just a little loose, Doctor, but not much.
Will it get me back into town?
Well, if you're careful.
Then I shall be very careful. Thank you, Bud. Good day, Master Hartsook. I'm sure we will meet again. Up, boy.
My, that doctor sure does take good care of his horse. I couldn't find hardly a thing wrong with that shoe.
Bud, your dog doesn't seem to care very much for Dr. Small. And the dog and I agreed. For some strange reason, I disliked the doctor intensely. His face was cruel, and his eyes were cold and hard. I didn't like him. And I was sure that he didn't care much for me.
Bud! Oh, Bud! Why don't you have the young man come in the house for refreshment, Bud?
Bud Means' mother was calling from the farmhouse, so he invited me inside to meet her.
So you're the schoolmaster. Wow.
For a rather glum-looking woman, Mrs. Means tried her best to be gracious and charming. For a minute, I wondered why.
Master Hartsook, wow, land. You'll be taking a little refreshment with us, I'm sure. Might as well, you know. Fact is, you'll probably be staying right here with us for a spell. That's the way we do it here in Flat Creek, you know. We board the teachers round, first to one house and then t'other. So you might as well start with us, eh?
The woman was really wound up.
And I would most certainly like to have you meet my daughter, Mirandy.
Her daughter, Mirandy. Now I began to understand.
Yes, I'd like for you to meet my little girl. Mirandy? Mirandy! Fix yourself real pert there and come downstairs. The new schoolmaster's here, Mirandy.
Seems like every time we get a new schoolmaster, Ma makes sure Mirandy meets him first.
Why, Bud Means, how can you sit there and say a thing like that?
Coming. Here I am. Oh, didn't someone call? I was in the kitchen churning butter. I thought I heard...
You thought you heard?
Yes, ma'am. I thought I heard somebody call.
Huh.
I guess I must have been mistaken. Excuse me, Mom. Excuse me.
Your daughter is very shy, Mrs. Means.
Oh, that warn't my daughter, Master Hartsook. That were Hannah, the bound girl. We saved her from a poorhouse. She's an orphan.
Then we have something in common, Mrs. Means, for I, too, am an orphan. I knew instinctively that I had said the wrong thing. But when I saw Hannah's frightened eyes and heard Mrs. Means' harsh voice, I felt a bond of sympathy spring up between me and Hannah. I had never been bound out, but I knew only too well the difficulties of an orphan's life. At last, Mirandy Means came down the stairs. It was very awkward. We were introduced, and I said I was charmed, and Mirandy... And she kept on giggling as we sat there. She said nothing, she just giggled. In fact, with the exception of one terrible day that was not too far distant, I have never heard Mirandy speak a single sentence. She just... The other girl, whom I had mistaken for Mrs. Means' daughter, served the refreshments. Hannah was very beautiful, even in her rough servant's clothes. I wanted to know her better, but I knew that was out of the question. The look in Mrs. Means' eye told me that. Well, it was good to know that I had made a friend of Bud Means, and little did I know how soon I would have to call for his aid. My first few weeks at school were rather successful, even if I do say so. And by way of celebration, I arranged for a spelling school to take place. In New England and most places in the East, they're called spelling bees. But in Indiana, they're spelling schools. Well, the Flat Creek Spelling School was to be held in the evening. And that afternoon, I dismissed the classes early, and I was sitting alone at my desk when... Come in.
Good afternoon, Master Hartzell.
Why, Shocky Thompson. Did you forget something?
No, sir.
Well, is there something on your mind, Shocky?
Yes, sir.
Well, is it something you can tell me about, Shocky? Is it something I can help you with?
They's gonna send me to the poorhouse, sir.
But I thought you lived with old Pearson, the basket maker. Can't Pearson take care of you any longer?
Yes, sir. But they's gonna send me anyway. That's why we came to talk to you, Master Hartzell.
We? Who's we, Shocky?
My sister. She's waiting in the woods at the edge of the schoolyard. She was afeard to come in unless you was alone. I'll call her now.
The boy stepped to the window and put his fingers to his lips. Shocky, why is your sister afraid to come to the schoolhouse?
She's a bound girl, sir. She ain't supposed to go off the place without leave.
I watched his sister leave the wood and come swiftly across the yard to the school. She was beautiful and graceful. And then I recognized her. It was Hannah, the orphan girl whom I had mistaken for Miranda Means.
How do you do, sir? I'm Shocky's sister, Hannah.
How do you do, Hannah? Sit down and tell me all about this.
It's Shocky, sir. They're going to send him away.
Yes, he just told me, the poorhouse.
It'll be worse than that.
How do you mean?
They'll do to him what they did to me. Have him bound out to a farmer.
Bound out? They put Shocky to work? But he's just a boy.
Yes, sir, I know he's just a little boy, but they'll do it. That's why they mustn't get him.
Have you no friends who can help you?
No.
What about your relatives? Don't you have any kin?
No, we come from England. My father died 3 years ago.
Oh, and your mother, is she alive?
If you call being in the poorhouse alive. He lost his sight after my father died.
And she couldn't care for you and Shocky, is that it?
Yes, sir. Oh, please, sir. I heard that you are an orphan, too. Can't you help us?
Well, I'd like to.
Oh, I'm sure you can. I can't leave the farm, but you can get Shocky away from here and out of the county. They can't touch him once he's outside.
Well, I have friends in Lewisburg. That's in the next county, but it's 30 miles of rough going. I'd need a good horse for that trip.
Master, Tanner, there's a rider coming down the big road. He's heading this way, and it looks like Dr. Small.
Good. Small has many friends and several fine horses. Perhaps he can help Shocky.
Oh, no, Master Hartsook, not Dr. Small.
Mister, he's getting close.
Oh, we've got to go, Master Hartsook. Small mustn't find us here.
Hannah, what do you mean about Dr. Small?
Don't tell him that we were here.
He's getting closer, and it looks like he's going to turn in his right. Sister, we've got to go.
Here, out the back way and through the thicket.
And you won't say anything to Dr. Small, promise me.
All right, I promise. Now.
And you will try to help Shocky?
I don't know. Will you be at the spelling school tonight?
Tanner, come on.
Yes, I'll be there.
Then I'll give you my answer tonight. As I waited for Dr. Small to ride up to the schoolhouse, I realized that I had become part of a conspiracy. I didn't question the wisdom of offering assistance to a boy in distress. But what were the real facts in this case? Why did Hannah make me promise not to speak to Dr. Small of their visit? And why did Shocky's eyes grow round with terror when I mentioned Dr. Small's name? But at that very moment, the omnipotent doctor was riding up to the schoolhouse. I had not seen him to talk to since that day at Means Farm, although I had observed him riding across the countryside at all hours. And I wondered why he had chosen this moment to pay me a visit. He said he had just come by to ask about the spelling school that evening.
I never participate in the contest myself. I feel it would be most unfair for a person of education to compete against the natives, shall we call them. Don't you agree with me, Master Hartzog?
Yes, in a way, I suppose I do, Dr. Small, but many of the natives, as you call them, are very intelligent. You know, because I'm the schoolmaster, it's required that I participate, and I sometimes shake in my boots for fear I'll be beaten by one of my own students.
Really? I didn't know that any of your students were that smart.
Oh, yes. Take little Shocky Thompson, for example. Do you know him?
Yes, I do. A very troublesome boy. Shockey should be bound out to a God-fearing Christian family with a good woman to mold his character. Someone like Mrs. Means, who has his sister Hannah.
Oh?
Yes, Mrs. Means would do a great deal for Shockey's character. Character is very important, Hartsook. My horse there has character. I can trust him, and he doesn't sneak behind my back. Or perhaps you don't know much about character.
I really hadn't given it much thought, Dr. Small.
I hardly believe that, Master Hartsook. However, if I were you, I wouldn't think too much about anything. You'd be much better off. And by the way, I don't know quite what it was that Hannah and Shockey said to you when they were here just now, but
Dr. Small,
Please don't protest. I'm not blind, you know. I saw them scamper into the woods when I rode up. I don't know what they had to say, Master Hartsook, but I wouldn't think too much about it. As your doctor, I can tell you that it wouldn't be very helpful. Good day, Master Hartsook. See you at the spelling school. And may all your words be little ones.
That evening at the spelling school, my mind was in a whirl. I was determined to find out what there was between Hannah and Dr. Small. Why did she fear him? At long last, Hannah entered the schoolroom. I knew that she would be waiting for my answer. But when I crossed the room to where she stood, Dr. Small intervened.
Good evening, Hannah.
Dr. Small.
Hannah, it's a pleasure to see you again, my dear.
Hannah looked at me, her eyes filled with terror. We could not speak because Dr. Small stayed with her until the sides were chosen for the spelling contest. And then Hannah and I were chosen by opposing teams and seated on opposite sides of the schoolhouse, while Dr. Small sat at the end of the room, smirking and watching our every move. And Mirandy Means sat at the other end, giggling. Dr. Small continued to smirk. He was staring in a curious, overpowering way. First at me, and then at Hannah. What trick was in his mind? The contest began as the squire gave the first word.
The first word, the first word is abate. Spell the first word, abate. Abate. A-B-A-T-E, abate. The second word is Abner, as in the Bible. Spell Abner.
Abner, as in the Bible. A-B-N-E-R, Abner.
I wondered if Small would keep us apart all evening. How would I get to Hannah and give her my answer?
Spell Abel.
Abel. A-B-L-E, Abel.
The words were easy at first. I spelled them mechanically.
Abstain. Spell abstain.
Abstain. A-B-S-T-A-I-N. Abstain. The evening wore on, and the field began to narrow down. Small kept on staring at me. My nerves were raw. I began to run into trouble.
Commensurate. Spell commensurate.
Commensurate. C-O-M-M-E-S... No, correction. Commensurate. C-O-M-M-E-N-S-U-R-A-T-E. Commensurate. I could not afford to make a mistake. If I did, I would become the laughingstock of the community.
Dynamical. Spell dynamical. Dynamical. D-I, step down. Next.
Amazing as it seems now, Hannah and I were the only contestants left on the two opposing teams. Then I saw Small's plan for what it was. He had deliberately tried to unnerve me, force me to lose the contest and disgrace myself. And as fate would have it, it was Hannah who spelled against me.
Dynamical. D-Y-N-A-M-I-C-A-L. Dynamical.
I looked across at Hannah. Never had she appeared more beautiful. Her broad, intelligent brow and her fresh white complexion made her an angel in my eyes.
Now, Master Hartsook will spell daguerreotype.
Daguerreotype. D-A-U...
Step down. Next.
Daguerreotype. D-A-G-U-E-R-R-E-O-T-Y-P-E. Daguerreotype.
I had been defeated by Hannah. Dr. Small licked his lips. But it was not his victory. It was a victory of love. When I looked at Hannah, I couldn't think. And so I lost the contest and the respect of my neighbors. This was the second step toward prison.
The winner, Miss Hannah Thompson.
Why Small allowed me to walk Hannah home that night, I'll never know. Unless he figured that he had caused enough damage for one evening.
I'm sorry about the spelling school, Master Hartsook. I hope you're not angry.
Oh, how could I be? It isn't the first time a schoolmaster lost out at an Indiana spelling school, and I dare say it won't be the last.
Nice of you to say that.
Anyway, we have more important things to talk about. Hannah, I'm going to help Shocky get away from Flat Creek.
Oh, I was hoping you would.
But you must tell me why you warned me against Dr. Small.
Because he's the one responsible.
For sending Shocky to the poorhouse?
Yes.
But why would he want to do a cruel thing like that?
To get even.
Even with whom?
Me.
Oh.
Oh, I can't tell you what an awful man he is. Oh, the way he looks at me sometimes. And I know he'll use his influence to put my brother in the worst kind of place, unless he gets away in time. Oh, when can you take Shocky to Lewisburg?
Tomorrow, after school. It's too late to do anything tonight. I'll go to Bud Means tomorrow and ask him for a horse.
Oh, do you think you can trust him?
Yes, as I trust my own brother. Or you, Hannah.
Oh, Master Hartsook.
I was truly in love with Hannah Thompson, and I felt that she loved me. That night I couldn't sleep, so I dressed and walked the fields in the moonlight. And I walked along the way which Hannah and I had taken earlier in the evening. Then, in the midst of my meditations, I heard horsemen galloping. There were 3 of them, and they were coming down the big road, coming closer and closer. They looked down at me as they thundered past, and an indefinable dread seized me. The horseman galloped on, and I stood there, shivering in a nervous fear. And then another horseman came down the road. The lone horseman was Dr. Small. He checked his horse in his usual cool way and stood still for a few seconds, looking me up and down contemptuously.
Good evening, Master Hartsook. What are you doing out in this dangerous night air? I think you and I had better have a little talk about your health. I'll be looking for you.
The whole scene in the moonlight there on the big road filled me with apprehension. It was very strange, but I could not allow myself to think about it. There were other matters that claimed my attention. And I hurried back to my room and made my plans for Shocky's escape. When morning came, I was ready. I put a small revolver in my pocket and started for the schoolhouse. As I walked along the path, I looked for Bud Means. I needed his horse for the trip to Lewisburg in the afternoon. But as luck would have it, it was Bud's sister Mirandy who joined me on the path.
Mr. Hartsook! Mr. Hartsook!
She was alone, and for once she was not giggling.
Mr. Hartsook, did you hear about the robber last night? The highwaymen came and robbed the Dutchman's farm.
Highwaymen. Suddenly I understood the scene on the highway which I had witnessed the night before. I had seen the highwaymen. And Small, what about Dr. Small? Was he one of them? But of course. Oh, what a fool I had been to stand there and let them recognize me. I wondered what Small's next move would be.
I heard Bud talking about it this morning. He's all over the district. Poor Bud. He sure is sore.
Well, I don't blame him, Mirandy. Robbery's a very serious crime.
Oh, no, it ain't that so much. Bud's sorry about you and Hannah.
About me and Hannah? What about me and Hannah?
Oh, didn't you know? Hannah's Bud's girl. They've been courting for most a year. Hannah's Bud's girl. Well, I thought everybody knew that. He's sure because you fetched her home from the spelling school.
Bud Means, my only friend, turned against me because of Hannah. Hannah Thompson was Bud's girl. I had come between them, and now I had lost his friendship. And now what would happen to poor little Shocky? He was depending upon me, and I was helpless without Bud. Throughout the day, Bud sat in class and eyed me in a curious fashion. And it wasn't until after school that I was able to talk to him alone. Bud, I need your help.
I don't know as I can give it now, Master Hartsook.
But, Bud, I didn't know what I was doing.
That's what they all say, Master Hartsook.
Bud, you must believe me. I swear to you I meant no harm.
Maybe, Master Hartsook, maybe. When you first come here, I thought you was an honest man.
I am, Bud. I am an honest man.
Maybe. But a lot of folks say that you know more than you oughter about last night's robbery over at the Dutchman's farm.
Robbery at the Dutchman's farm?
That's right. Some folks claim you were seen on the highway.
What they claim is true, Bud. I was on the highway. But that doesn't mean that I committed a robbery. No matter what people say, I'm innocent. But what's more important now is that I apologize to you for walking home with Hannah.
Hannah?
Yes, I give you my word, Bud. I will never see Hannah again.
Mr. Hartsook, there's some kind of a mix-up here. I'm right concerned about the robbery, but I don't give a hoot about what happens to Hannah.
You don't care?
No, I don't.
But your sister Miranda, she said that you were angry because I took Hannah home from the spelling school. She said that Hannah Thompson was your girl.
Miranda said that? Look, Master Hartsook, if you was to say to me that my sister lied, I'd whup you till your hide wouldn't hold shucks. But let me say that you can't believe a single word said by her or any jealous female.
You mean there's nothing between you and Hannah?
Never was and never will be. With all respect for Hannah.
Oh, Bud, you don't know how happy this makes me. Bud, will you help me save a little Christian?
Well, if you figure I'm the feller you want. But like I said the first day we met, Master Hartsook, I never seed how a poor unlarned critter like me could lay claim to being much of a Christian.
Remember, Bud, that Jesus himself was a sort of flat critter. The people in his town were unlearned, and the very name Nazareth meant bush town.
Then you think maybe he'd have me as a Christian?
I'm sure he would, Bud. What you've got to do is make sure that you live and work in his ways.
Could I begin now?
Yes, you can begin right now by helping me save Shockey Thompson and get him away to Lewisburg. Believe what you will about me, but we must save that boy. Will you help?
Doggone, Mr. Hartsook. I guess I was right that first day when I figured you for an honest man. Doggone, I don't care what people say. You offered to gin up Hannah because you thought she was my gal. That's more than I'd have done by a long shot. Then you turn around and try to help me be a Christian. Master Hartsook, I say such a man must be all right. You can't be guilty of no crime, no matter what people say. And you can count on me to help save Shockey.
Master Hartsook!
Shockey, what is it?
Master Hartsook, there's a mob getting ready on the bed road. They's coming this way, and they's coming after you.
Yes, they were coming after me. It was Dr. Small's work, as you might imagine. He and his henchmen had incited a mob. And if his plan had succeeded, I might have been hanged from a tree in my own schoolyard. But I have lived to tell my tale. Tomorrow I will leave this prison cell, and I will face Dr. Small in court. And who knows what tomorrow may bring.
The Hoosier Schoolmaster by Edward Eggleston is one of America's novels, brought to you each week by the NBC University of the Air. Listen next week for the final episode of The Hoosier Schoolmaster. And remember that there is a world of entertainment and information to be found in your local public library. Many American novels in the 1947 summer series are included in the useful handbook of the World's Great Novels, which you may obtain by sending 25 cents to World's Great Novels, Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27, New York. That's Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27. The Hoosier Schoolmaster is adapted for radio by Richard E. Davis. The music was composed by Emil Soderstrom, and the orchestra was directed by Bernard Bergquist. The entire production was under the direction of Homer Heck. Ralph Hartsook is played by Harry Elders, Hannah by Gene Mowry, Bud by Hugh Rowland, Shockey by Stuart Slam, Dr. Small by Boris Aflon, Mrs. Means by Harriet Allen, Mirandy by Elmira Ressler, the Squire by Cliff Subir, and the Jailer by Cliff Norton. This is Don Elders. This program comes to you from Chicago and is a presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. American Novels. the NBC University of the Air presents the concluding episode of its two-part dramatization of Edward Eggleston's close-up of life on the early Indiana frontier, The Hoosier Schoolmaster, another in the series of books that live, American novels.
You'll find the schoolmaster down there, Marm. Last cell on your right.
Thank you very much. Ralph.
Hannah, darling. Here I am.
Oh, I had to see you, Ralph. I've been called as a witness against you.
For today?
Yes. Oh, Ralph, what shall I tell them on the stand? I don't want to hurt you.
Just tell the truth, Hannah. For only the truth can set me free, if I am to go free.
Don't say that. You must go free. I'm the one who should be in this prison cell, not you.
Hannah.
If I hadn't asked you to help Shockey, you wouldn't be on trial for a robbery you didn't commit.
It's not your fault. I saved your brother Shockey from the poorhouse because it was the thing to do. And I'd do it again.
Oh, yes, but when you helped Shockey get away, you made an enemy of Dr. Small. You wanted to use Shockey to help get his own way with me. Now he's turned everybody against you.
I'm not on trial because of anything I did for Shockey. I'm here because I know too much. I saw too much on the night the highwaymen robbed the Dutchman's farm. And that's why I gave myself up and asked for a trial. Small never wanted this thing to come to court. He thought he could start a whispering campaign and organize a mob that would run me out of town. But it didn't work because I don't believe in running.
Oh, Ralph.
What worries me now is Bud. I can't understand it, Hannah. He didn't come to the trial yesterday. And he was supposed to have located old man Pearson. Pearson saw a great deal on the night of the robbery, and we need his testimony.
Time's up, miss.
Goodbye, Hannah.
Good luck, Ralph.
Presenting the case of the state of Indiana versus Schoolmaster Ralph Hartsook on charge of highway robbery. The court is now in session, and the judge will speak. Judge Underwood.
I think it's only proper to remind all parties that this here is a most unusual case. Master Hartsook has decided to act as his own lawyer, and accordingly, I have decided to conduct this trial as informally as possible so that Master Hartsook will not suffer from his ignorance of legal procedure. Now, Mr. Bronson, would you care to resume the case for the state of Indiana?
I would, Your Honor. My first witness for today is Mr. Pete Jones. Would Mr. Pete Jones please come to the stand?
Yep, I'll come if I get through this here.
Just push him aside, Mr.
Mr.
Jones.
Hartsook.
Bud, you've come at last. Did you find Pearson?
No, I couldn't locate him. But I found somebody else who can help you.
Who?
Walter Johnson won a small scale. And if Johnson don't talk, I'm going to be mighty surprised.
What makes you so sure?
Because I did my best to make sure.
You didn't use force, Bud.
Yes, but not the kind you mean. I used God's force.
What do you mean?
I've been taking Johnson to revival meetings, trying to convert him and get him to make a clean breast of small, sturdy dealing.
Do you think he'll testify?
I hope so. I tried to put the fear of God into him, but I don't know if I got the fear of Small out of him.
Pete Jones, you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Jones, can you tell the court what you know about the events which occurred on the night of October 20th?
I sure can. That was the night Dutchman Schrader's farm was robbed. Hartsook was living at my place then, because it was my turn to board schoolmaster.
And do you remember anything unusual about the night of October 20th?
Yep. After we come home from spelling school, was all in bed, I heard Hartsook get up and leave the house about 1 o'clock in the morning. Then he woke me up when he come back again about 2:30.
I see. And in the morning, did Hartsook tell you where he'd been during the night?
No, sir.
And you didn't ask him?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because I figured that any honest man would speak up without being asked. So when Hartsook didn't offer to explain, I figured there was no use for to ask him, because he'd only lie about it.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Your witness, Master Hartsook.
Thank you, Mr. Bronson. Mr. Jones, I have reason to feel you were somewhat prejudiced against me.
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't. But you don't like me, do you?
Is that a fair question?
I think so. Unless you're ashamed of your answer.
All right, then. No, I don't like you, Hartsook.
Yes, and for a very good reason. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let me tell you about it. On the morning after the robbery, Pete Jones headed a lynch mob that was setting out to get me. But something stopped him. Can you remember what it was, Mr. Jones?
Well,
Let me refresh your memory. The mob and its leader were stopped because its leader was knocked unconscious. Mr. Jones, who knocked you unconscious? Tell the truth.
You did.
Therefore, it might be possible for you to be prejudiced against me. Don't you agree?
I don't know.
But you would say that it is possible.
Oh, yes, I suppose so.
Very well, then. Now tell us, why were you leading that mob?
We was out to get you for robbery. This district don't like thieves, Master Hartsook.
Indeed. Then I suggest that you might consider getting out of town, Mr. Jones.
What do you mean?
On the night of the robbery, I saw 3 men riding in the moonlight together on the highway. One of the men was riding a horse which had a white marking on its left forefoot. And the very next morning, I found you, Pete Jones, in your barn feeding a horse with a white marking on its left forefoot. The same horse that I had seen on the highway.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hartsook. Sure, I got a horse with a white front foot, but that don't prove I'm a thief. And suppose you did see me on the road, which you didn't. Does that prove that I'm a highwayman?
I wonder. That's a very good point, Mr. Jones. Every man and woman in this county believes that I'm a highwayman because I was on the highway. But as you have just pointed out, what does it prove? Does it prove that I am a highwayman? No more questions. You may step down, Mr. Jones.
The state would like to call Miss Hannah Thompson to the stand. Miss Hannah Thompson, is she here?
Yes, I'm coming.
Good work, Master Hartsook. You keep going in here while I get going outside and find out what's happened to Walter Johnson.
No sign of him yet?
No, so I'll just take a little walk over to his rooms and see what's detaining him. We gotta have his testimony.
Miss Thompson, you are a bound girl, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Well, will you tell the court just what that means in your case?
It means that I became a ward of the county when my father died, and my mother was sent to the poorhouse when she could not support us.
By us, you mean you and your brother, Shockey Thompson.
Yes.
Continue.
Well, my brother Shockey went to live with a kind friend, John Pearson, the basket maker, and I was bound out to work for Mrs. Means for 6 years in return for my keep.
I see. And how much longer must you work for Mrs. Means?
3 years, but I don't see what this has to do with the case.
Oh, it has a great deal to do, Miss Thompson. I want to emphasize that your particular position in life was very low and poor when Master Hartsook first showered you with his attentions.
How do you mean?
I mean this. Hartsook is a man of low character, and accordingly, he took advantage of your unfortunate position.
Oh, no.
Hartsook thought he could use you in his robbery schemes, but you proved to be too honest. You would not compromise because essentially you are an honest girl and you cannot be bought.
No. I mean, I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? Are you honest or aren't you? Can you be bought or can't you? Answer me then. What kind of a girl are you?
I'm honest.
Perhaps, but I'm not so sure. Let us continue. Hartsook found out that you couldn't be bought in ordinary ways, but he learned that there was one way that you could be bought, wasn't there? Miss Thompson, that night after the spelling school, you saw something on the highway, and Hartsook found out about it, and he was worried for fear you would talk. He wondered how he could silence you. And then he found out that your brother was about to be taken away from Pearson and sent to the poorhouse, and Hartsook knew that you would do anything to save your brother.
No.
I say yes. Hartsook offered to send your brother out of the county and save him from the poorhouse if you would agree not to tell what you saw that night on the highway. Miss Thompson, tell the court what you saw. Come now, Miss Thompson, speak up. What did you see on the highway?
I saw Ralph Hartsook.
You saw him from your bedroom window, didn't you?
Yes, he was standing on the road.
And what was he doing there?
I don't know. He was just walking.
A likely story. What would you guess that a man might be doing on the highway at 2 o'clock in the morning on the night that an honest farmer's home was robbed? Or did you promise not to tell about Hartsook's part in the robbery because he helped your brother?
My brother's escape had nothing to do with the robbery. Ralph Hartsook didn't offer to save my brother because of that.
Oh, he had another reason, perhaps?
Yes. A reason that you, Mr. Bronson, would not understand. Ralph Hartsook has a love for his fellow beings. He dislikes suffering. He dislikes poverty. And he disapproves of the poorhouse. He saved my brother because I asked him to.
Well. Just like that. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want you all to get a very clear picture of what Miss Thompson has just told us. Ralph Hartsook, the honest schoolmaster, told her, the poorest and most miserable girl, a bound girl, mind you, he told her that he did not believe in poverty. He told her that she suffered, and he did not believe in that. He told her that he did not believe in the poorhouse. He told her that he loved his fellow beings. And I suppose that he told this poor girl that he loved her. He took advantage of her, the scoundrel. I'll tell you why Ralph Hartsook helped Shocky Thompson get away. He did it because he did not want Hannah Thompson to tell what she had seen on the highway. Ralph Hartsook returning home from the robbery of the Dutchman's farm. Your witness, Master Hartsook.
I have no questions. But if the court will permit, I would like to comment.
Proceed. You may return to your seat, Miss Thompson.
Thank you.
I have this to say. Hannah Thompson is an innocent girl. She's an honorable girl. I did not attempt to beguile her with promises. I did not threaten her. I did not compromise her by offering to help her brother in return for her silence. Aside from his attempts to slander me and ruin the character of Hannah Thompson, Mr. Bronson was able to prove but one point. He proved that I was on the road. But I repeat, my presence on the road does not prove that I committed a crime.
Very well, then, Master Hartsook. What were you doing on the road on the night of October 20th, the night of the robbery?
I was walking in the moonlight.
Master Hartsook, walking in the moonlight. Do you expect me to believe that?
No.
Then why did you say it?
Because it's the truth, Mr. Bronson. And throughout this entire trial, you have refused to believe the truth. So why should I expect you to begin believing it now?
Thank you, Master Hartsook. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, draw your own conclusions from the hysterical speech which you have just heard. I am prepared to meet it with facts. Will Mr. Pete Banter please come to the stand?
Yes, sir.
What?
Master Hartsook, I'm back.
Thank goodness. Tell me, did you find Walter Johnson?
Well, I found him, but I can't guarantee that he'll testify. Dr. Small's been talking to him. Johnson's plenty scared. That's why he didn't want to come into court.
Is Johnson here now?
Yes. He just sat down. There and back at Dr. Small.
Oh, yes. I wish we had him sitting here beside us.
He won't. He's scared.
Well, he's our only witness unless Pearson shows up, and that isn't likely now.
Now, Mr. Banter, what is your profession?
My what?
What do you do?
Well, I go to school when there is any.
I see. And what school do you go to?
Flat Creek District School.
Mm-hmm. And how long has Master Hartsook been in charge at the Flat Creek School?
About a month.
And have you ever missed a single day of school?
No, sir, not one day.
Then I take it that we can safely say that you have seen the master for at least 5 full days of every week for the past month. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then we can also take it that you can recognize him when you see him.
Yes, sir.
Even in the dark?
Yes, sir. The master wears a city hat.
Then will you kindly tell the court what you saw from your home on the night of October 20th?
Well, our place is just about 100 yards from Dutchman Schrader's, what was robbed. And on that night, I see the master and another man come sneaking out of the Dutchman.
Who was the other man?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to say unless I was.
Very good. But you are sure that you did see Master Hartsook?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there is your final proof. Witness after witness has testified against the character of Ralph Hartsook. I myself pulled aside the curtain and allowed you to inspect his relationship with Hannah Thompson, the poor bound girl, and her miserable brother. You heard her testify that she saw Hartsook on the road. Mr. Pete Jones heard Hartsook prowling around in the early hours of the morning. Hartsook himself has admitted to that charge. And now Pete Banter swears he saw Ralph Hartsook come out of the Dutchman's farm. And so I say to you, Ralph Hartsook is guilty.
And I say he's innocent.
It's Pearson, the basket maker. He's come at last. He's just in time, too.
Yes. You'll have to excuse me, but I've been away and I didn't but just get back. Can I testify?
You may.
Thank you.
Mr. Hartsook, do you claim this witness? I do. John Pearson, do you swear?
Yes, sir, I sure do. If I was to ever get to going, you'd have to clear the courtroom.
Mr. Pearson, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
All right, yes, I do.
Mr. Pearson, I want you to realize that the testimony which you are about to give may place your life in jeopardy.
I object.
On what grounds?
Why, intimidating the witness.
But he's my witness, Mr. Brown.
Objection overruled.
Yes. Now, Mr. Pearson.
Don't worry none about me, Master Hartsook. I ain't afeard of no man. Now, sir, I fit in 1812 with General Winfield Scott. I was at Lundy's Lane.
Of course, Mr. Pearson, of course. And now, can you tell us what you know of the robbery of Dutchman Schrader's farm on the night of October 20th?
Huh? What I know? Why, I seed 'em.
Who, Mr. Pearson?
I seed the thieves, the ones that robbed the Dutchman's farm. That's what. You see, it was a Thursday night. Guess I must have took a little too much at Welch's store. Whiskey, that is. So I laid me down in the road to rest. Well, sir, I slept, I reckon, was about 3 hours. And then about 1 o'clock, I woke up and started making for home. And just as I started by Pete Jones's place, I seen 3 men on horseback.
I see. And did you recognize these 3 men?
Yep. One of them I did. One of them I recognized for sure. Recognized him, recognized his horse.
And who was that man?
It is Pete Jones there. That's who it was.
That's the lie! Hey, order in the court.
Yeah, let's have a little order here. I ain't finished yet. And riding right close behind the 3 men was Dr. Small.
That's all. You're a witness, Mr. Bronson.
No, thank you, Master Hartsook. No questions, Mr. Pearson.
No questions? How come?
Because I don't question old drunks, Mr. Pearson.
Why, you...
Your Honor, I consider this testimony worthless. Why, this man's appearance is nothing more than a shabby theatrical trick. He admits that he was so drunk that he went to sleep in the road. And then he expects us to believe his statements about what he thinks he saw when he came out of his alcoholic stupor. No, thank you. No questions.
If the court pleases.
Dr. Small,
May I make a statement?
you may. Come forward, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no personal interest in this, except that as a professional man, I am sorry to see another professional man discredit his profession. The evidence against Master Hartsook would seem to be quite overwhelming, and I would not feel compelled to add a feather to it, if it were not for the fact that my own name has been mentioned several times by Hartsook and his confederates.
What's he up to? I'm not sure. Listen.
It has been stated that I was on the road in Flat Creek on the night of October 20th. However, I am prepared to swear that I was not in Flat Creek after 10 o'clock on the night of the robbery.
Surely Dr. Small is not defending himself against the charge of robbery which has been brought against me.
I am not. If the court pleases, I am prepared to swear as to my whereabouts on that night. Not because I feel it is necessary to clear my name. My reputation speaks for itself. I offer my statement because it proves that Master Hartsook and Company's story about horsemen on the road is nothing but a tissue of lies. And I should like to introduce a witness to support my statement. Walter Johnson.
Doggone that Small. He's beating us to the punch.
But the first punch isn't the whole fight, Bud. I think Small's done us a favor by putting Johnson on the stand. At least we'll get a chance at him now.
I sure do hope I made a convert. Johnson tells the truth. Small's days are numbered.
Well, I'm going to make sure that Johnson stays converted. Hand me that Bible, Bud.
Your Honor,
Yes?
I realize that this is a most unusual request. But I feel that the testimony which is about to be given is most vital. May I administer the oath to the witness?
I object.
On what grounds?
Why, well, it just isn't done. It's not according to the letter of the law.
Very true, Mr. Bronson. But there can sometimes be more to justice than the letter of the law. I fail to see why Master Hartsook should not swear the witness in. Proceed.
Walter Johnson,
Yes, sir.
place your hand on this sacred book.
Yes, sir.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do, I swear.
Thank you. Take the witness, Mr. Bronson.
Very clever, Hartsook. Now, what is your profession, Mr. Johnson?
I'm a medical student. I study with Dr. Small.
I see. And will you please tell the court what you know of the whereabouts of Dr. Small on the night of the robbery?
On the night of the robbery?
Yes.
I think that was a Thursday.
Of course it was a Thursday. Thursday the 20th.
Yes, the 20th of October.
Well, go on, lad. Tell us about the night of the robbery.
On the night of the I can't go on. I can't. Oh, what am I going to do?
He's fainted. Bud, I think your conversion took. That boy is wrestling with the devil. And I think Dr. Small may have overreached
I'll
himself.
help him. I'm a doctor. The boy's fainted. I'll help him. Get me some brandy, somebody.
Oh, I'll testify tomorrow.
You fool. Get up and get on that witness stand or you'll never live to see tomorrow. Oh, thank you. Here, drink this, Walter. You'll feel better.
Oh, looks mighty worried.
Yes, he should. And he's going to be more worried when I get through with Johnson. He can't back out now.
Now, Mr. Johnson, tell the court your story.
Well, Dr. Small was not in Flat Creek on that night. He was with me. We was together in my room. I was studying and he was learning me. And he stayed with me all the night and did not leave until after breakfast the following morning. That's
what?
That's the way... that's the truth. Dr. Small was not in Flat Creek that night. He was with me. We was together in my room.
That will be all, Mr. Johnson. If the court pleases, I'm afraid that Mr. Johnson is not feeling well. Certainly he does not seem well enough to testify further in a court of law.
Just one moment, Mr. Bronson. It is my opinion that Walter Johnson's physical condition is excellent. I'm afraid it is his mind that is not well. In short, his conscience is bothering him. Do you have any more questions, Mr. Bronson?
Oh, but I... Well, no.
Very well. Walter Johnson, do you believe in a power greater than ourselves?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Johnson, just a few minutes ago you swore that you would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
God watches us all, Walter Johnson. No sparrow falls without his knowing it. No sinner falls without his knowing. And no man who has sinned and wants to repent his sins is neglected by God. Did you know that, Walter Johnson?
Yes.
There is always hope for the sinner, Walter, because God is forgiving, God is merciful, and God is all understanding even when men are not. Don't you think that offered hope to the sinner, Walter Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Did you love your mother, Walter?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you love your mother a lot?
Yes, sir.
And did your mother love you?
Yes.
And did she forgive you when you did wrong?
Yes.
And no matter what you did, she stood ready at your side?
Yes, sir.
Well, God is the same way, Walter Johnson. He is standing at your side. He will help you if you will but ask his forgiveness. Have you ever been to a revival?
Yes, sir.
A friend of mine took a young man to a revival just a few nights ago. Brother Sodden was preaching at that meeting, and my friend took the young man to save his soul. That young man was just about your age, Walter. And that young man, he was taken to the revival because my friend wanted to put into him the fear of Almighty God. That young man was you, Walter. Do you remember?
The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. With the fear of God, the love of God is ever consistent. Young man, you have followed the counsel of evil companions and chosen evil pursuits. You are being dragged down to hell. Down, down, down. You You are standing right on the very crumbling brink of hell. At this moment, the smell of brimstone is on your garment. The hot breath of hell is in your face. The devils are waiting for you. Delay, and you're damned, yes, damned. You may die before sunset, yeah. You may never get out of your chair, yeah. The awful angel of death is just ready to strike you down.
No, don't let the devil get me. I don't want to go to hell. I'll tell. I lied, but I'll tell the truth. Dr. Small, he robbed the Dutchman's farm. Dr. Small and Pete Jones and me, we did it. It's all Dr. Small's fault.
Watch out, Dr. Small has a gun. Grab him, get Dr. Small before he gets away.
Will Miss Hannah Thompson and Master Ralph Hartsook please step before the bench?
Go on. Get up there, you two.
Your Honor.
Your Honor?
Master Hartsook, you have been the victim of grave injustice. We must give thanks to God that further miscarriage has been averted, and for the apprehension of the true criminals, namely Dr. Small, Pete Jones, and Walter Johnson. Now, Master Hartsook, you are hereby discharged from the bar of this court and from the bar of public sentiment without a suspicion of guilt. The court congratulates you on your acquittal. And as for you, Miss Thompson, well, this court now declares that Miss Hannah Thompson, presently in the state of bondage imposed upon her because of probity and circumstances, may be freed from bondage if somewhere in this community there's someone who will care for her and provide for her.
If the court pleases, I would be greatly honored to assume that obligation. If Miss Thompson will have me.
Oh, Ralph. Yes.
Hannah, my darling.
The Hoosier Schoolmaster by Edward Eggleston is one of America's novels, brought to you each week by the NBC University of the Air. Listen next week to a radio version of Life on the Mississippi by Samuel Clemens. And remember that there's a world of entertainment and information to be found in your local public library. Many American novels in the 1947 summer series are included in the useful Handbook of the World's Great Novels, which you may obtain by sending 25 cents to World's Great Novels, Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27, New York. That's Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27. The Hoosier Schoolmaster is adapted for radio by Richard E. Davis. The music was composed by Emil Soderstrom and the orchestra directed by Bernard Berquist. The entire production was under the direction of Homer Heck. Ralph Hartsook was played by Harry Elders, Hannah by Gene Mowry, Bud by Hugh Rowland, Bronson by Don Gallagher, and the Judge by Cliff Zubir. Others were Boris Aplon, Johnny Coons, Charles Flynn, Sherman Marks, Cliff Norton, Jess Pugh, and Duke Watson. This is Don Elders. This program comes to you from Chicago and is a presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.